And, high school, I won 2 state championships in football in Mississippi.
Nice.
And I had the opportunity. I originally was getting recruited to go to Arkansas, and the coach left to go to another SEC school that I didn't really care for. And the opportunity presented itself to go to Ole Miss. And my dad at the time was already gone. They already left.
So what was the 40 like? What was your 100? What was 100 keys press? What was your vertical? We love to ask
Man,
those
I don't
questions
even.
on this platform, man.
We have to.
I don't
Your
even.
strong safety. Your strong safety or your free safety who's lined up behind you every play. What would he tell me about you? Would he tell me this guy is a cover guy or this guy, he lays the wood, plugs the holes. He's a pre-snap reader.
Elliot ain't about coverage, bro. Do you just hear about this stretch of? He ain't about no coverage.
Right. So what would he tell me about you playing back in the day? In 2020, you joined the USA Bobsledding team. And that was during the heights of COVID. I mean, I don't ask these questions. How did this come about? I mean, how did this opportunity find you, or how did you find this opportunity? Right with me. Good God, let's eat. So Elliot, man, it's good to have you. Good to see you. Good to catch back up with you again. The last time that we contacted each other, it was on LinkedIn. I mean, you reached out to me, and that was a that was a brave thing to do. And once I had a look and realized, oh, this guy's an athlete, man. This guy's like an ex and present athlete, shall I say? And look at your bio. I thought, okay, let me reach out to you and find out. Let's have a conversation and see where it's going to go. And yeah, I was pleasantly surprised on your narrative, etc. But you're obviously gonna hopefully dive into it this afternoon. So yeah, you have your man Hutchie
Nice
Hutch.
good afternoon. My name is
Yeah.
Royal Rodman, the hitting machine, aka the hitting machine. Still,
AK.
I'm not. Listen. I ain't hitting on the field, but I'm hitting in the gym constantly. So that I'm still hitting something.
Yeah,
That's
you
awesome.
know that we got to hit the gym. And today we have Elliot Markuson. And Elliot, before I do an introduction, I'm not going to do an introduction. I'm going to want you to introduce yourself. I'm going to pass the mic to you, and I'd like you just to give us a 30-second intro of Mr. Elliot Markuson.
Yeah, and before I do the intro, I just want to hit back on the LinkedIn thing. I think LinkedIn's a powerful tool. I encourage young people to use it and explore their brand, promote themselves, reach out to people like you across the pond, right? You never know what kind of interesting people that you're going to meet, or you could potentially collaborate with. The world's a small place.
No
Don't kind of
doubt.
get into
For
that,
sure.
my background, but. Yeah, I grew up. My dad was a college football coach here in the United States. I grew up quite literally on the sidelines of American football field. Right, my earliest memories were on the sidelines at Arkansas Razorback games. Then grew up, got to live my dream as a college football player. Uh, Graduated, did that whole deal. I knew I wasn't going to go play in the NFL. So I moved to China, where I was a teacher, and I coached American football for a year while I was there. Came back to the States, got recruited to be a Team USA bobsled athlete. So that's kind of my story. And then now, along with being an athlete, building my brand and working in sports diplomacy and expanding, the game of American football internationally is kind of, my passion and what I'm kind of moving into now. And yeah, it's a blessing. And like I said, I get to meet cool people like you guys that are, all over the world.
Brilliant.
Appreciate that.
So, Ro, you going to kick this off, or you want me to kick this off?
Without doubt, before we kick off, don't forget to hit us up on our socials. We got Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And don't forget when you're on YouTube to hit that notification button so you know when we upload the next video. And yeah, on that one, I'm gonna kick it off this evening. I've got a little
Woohoo! Do this. Okay.
a little question here for Elliot. I'm gonna start it off tonight. Normally Hachi starts it off. I'm gonna start it off
I'm
tonight.
glad that you're going to kick it off, man. My back is tired of carrying you, so go for it.
You carry it. You carry who? You carry yourself.
Hey.
About carrying. Sorry. I'm going to start this off. So, you said you got a sports diploma sports diploma. So how did you? So my question is, how's your experience teaching American football? In China, and contributing your passion for the sport through your diploma.
Yeah, so my degree that I got in college was communications and marketing. It was just kind of something that there were a lot of hot girls in my classes, man. Like, it's really hard. I was focused on girls and playing American ball and hanging out with my buddies.
Living the dream, man. Living that college dream.
Yeah,
that's what it sounds like.
It's a dream. And so my degree, my diploma wasn't really applicable to coaching American football, right? And so I just knew I had a lot of experience. And so when I got to China to teach English, I got connected in the American football scene pretty quickly with foreigners, other Americans. There were a couple of British guys kind of working in that space in the country, and it was a pretty easy, transition into that. And, I have been around football my whole life, so it was pretty, I don't know, it was kind of like second nature, just kind of pick it up. And I remember some of the first practices I had with this high school I was coaching, they didn't even have jerseys, so it was kind of like the longest yard. I was duct taping their pads. Trying to coach them up we were doing position drills, receiver routes, and we were doing a little bit of Oklahoma, so we were hitting just a little bit.
Oklahoma, Jesus.
Let them feel the contact a little bit, but yeah, it was the Wild West of American
Elliot,
football.
quick question, man. How did you deal with the communication barrier here? Because that must have been a bit challenging, unless you had like an interpreter beside you telling firing off what you.
Or you learn Chinese, one of the two.
How did you?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. The coach that kind of recruited me at this high school, he spoke English. He was fluent. He actually came to the U.S. and got his college degree, and he played on like a club football team. He was really interested in football, and that was kind of why we met. And he essentially hired me. But then at the same time, I like to consider myself kind of a student. Not even kind of, like, I really applied myself to learning as much Mandarin that I could while I was there. And so this was just another avenue for me to practice, essentially, and try to instill some mental toughness to these kids.
Got it. Okay.
But people don't understand that mental toughness when you play this game. That's the honest truth. They really don't.
This game ain't for everyone. This game is for everyone. And you do need. That is definitely a prerequisite to playing this physical sport like this. I get that.
Yeah, and I think that the lessons, and some people, like my girlfriend now, she ran track and field. She's a very accomplished hurdle athlete here in the United States. But she just doesn't understand. And we get into philosophical debates on training method. And because we're both teammates on the bobsled team now, and she's like, we should pace ourselves, we should. And I'm like, you got to keep hammering until the wheels fall off. That's it's a football mentality. And then she's like, you guys are the same. Like you guys enjoy pain and all. I'm like, no, it's just how you're trained to persevere through hardships, right? Any adversity, right? You get a bad phone call, bad text message, bad grade, or you just got your shit rocked and you got to get up and play the next play, right? Like it's all adversity. It's all applicable to life. It's just how you kind of harness those, I don't know, lessons.
And I'm
Right?
glad that you just touched on something in your career, which is bobsleighing, which we're definitely going to be coming back to and talking.
Yeah.
But yeah, my initial question to you is it's about, so your father, he wins the O-line coach position in 2008 at Ole Miss, right? And my question to you is, was that like a major influence for you as to why you played at Ole Miss? Could you have gone to any other schools? Did you have any other offers, or was that like a major influence why you decided to play at Ole Miss?
Yeah, I had a few other offers, some smaller schools. Really, truthfully, I'll give you guys a little insider tip. Not a lot of people know about me. Originally, I wanted to be an Arkansas Razorback. I grew up for 11 years calling the Hogs, wearing the
Hey,
red.
hold on,
That was my
bro, Clint Storner.
Clint Sterner.
Yeah.
That's
Storner,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Razorback,
Yeah.
allocated to NFL Europe 2001 QB from Dallas,
Yep.
Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
I remember Clint when I was just a little kid because he was the quarterback while my dad was coaching in Arkansas. And so I remember being in the locker room with there in the team meeting rooms with all of those guys. And anyway, long story short, my dad gets a job at Ole Miss. We moved to Mississippi in 8th grade. So a very formative time for a young man, right? Middle school, you're getting really into competitive sports, from Pee Wee up to like, all right, this is, your future essentially. And, high school, I won 2 state championships in football in Mississippi.
Nice.
And I had the opportunity. I originally was getting recruited to go to Arkansas, and the coach left to go to another SEC school that I didn't really care for. And the opportunity presented itself to go to Ole Miss. And my dad at the time was already gone. They already left. So I wasn't going to get to play for my dad.
Oh, okay.
But the opportunity to play for my hometown, to kind of live that life of like this is, at the time, nobody really from my high school had been to Ole Miss to play ball. So yeah, it was a blessing really. And, I definitely enjoyed being the hometown kid. That's for sure.
Great. So you was a linebacker. What was you? Was you Mac? Was you out? Was you Will? Was you Sam? What was you?
Yeah, middle linebacker. I was beefy. I was beefier back then.
I'm talking about down there with the dogs.
He's up in the trenches like Tony.
He's in the trenches, bro. He's directing traffic, bro. Yeah. I appreciate that.
Don't worry about coverage. Just hit that pulling guard every play. That's all you got to worry about.
Pulling guard.
And now and again, you might have to realize. Well, I don't know if you would have done. When it was past, the only coverage you had was the hook, because you weren't going anywhere else.
Well, we did start to operate a more athletic defense, which was the Tampa 2, which is kind of based off Monty Kiffin's. And in that defense, the middle linebacker has to, there's certain formations where if they flex him out, he has to carry the 3 vertical the whole way. So it almost turns into a man coverage for the Mike linebacker on the 3 to the field. So if you have a really athletic tight end, you're like, oh my God, dude, I'm carrying this guy 40 yards. So yeah, it was good. It's a good defense, but not
so Elliot, if I was to say, your strong safety or your free safety who's lined up behind you every play, what would he tell me about you? Would he tell me this guy is a cover guy, or this guy, he lays the wood, plugs the holes, he's a pre-snap reader?
Elliot ain't about coverage, bro. Do you just hear about his stretch of? He ain't about no coverage.
Right. So what would he tell me about you playing back in the day?
That's a great question. Probably, my humility would like to say that, he's a reliable, guy on the field. He knows where to be, knows how to get lined up. I definitely prided myself on being one of the toughest. I thought I was, at least. I never shied away from contact. That's for sure.
There you go.
That's why I bobsled now, right? You got to be a little messed up to do it. But
Yeah, you definitely have.
I would like to say I've made my cut kind of on being the most reliable, and that translated off the field too. So usually the first one in the team meeting, I'd stayed extra time to watch more film. Always talking with our coaches in their offices, and just being the first one in the locker room every day, and just priding myself on doing these little things. And it translated to the field inevitably, which is another great life lesson, I guess.
I think, you know what? I think nowadays the Mike linebacker's completely different. I think when we were playing and when he was playing, they're not interested in no coverage. All they're interested in is plugging holes. And they probably get upset if they had to go into coverage because that's they weren't even about that. All they were thinking about is I just want to lay the wood. I just want to plug all these holes. That's it. But nowadays you have to be more universal.
I hear that.
Yeah, you got to be more dynamic. I would say that if you
The game's changed,
nowadays a middle linebacker, as long as you got some aggressiveness, I think you'll be all right. Even if there was a situation where a middle linebacker wasn't great in coverage, then what they would do is a defensive coordinator would game plan to switch the Will and the Mike depending on the formation and where they're at on the field, right? So, if there was a scenario where you got trips to the field and for some reason the Mike linebacker ended up to the field, they would just switch them. And they wouldn't even worry about, because there's too much. There's too many. The game's too fast now. It's too you got to be on the go, and it's better to do that than to have your Mike linebacker tapping out after 3 plays, right? You can't do that.
So Elliot, man,
what was your playing, Elliot? Sorry, what was your playing weight?
You just beat me too. I was just going to ask him about his measurables, man.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
I think I was playing. Man, it's crazy because I was just talking about this with somebody the other day, and when you look at photos of me back in my playing days, my neck is just like from headbutting people. And I think I played at 230. I think was my optimal weight. Now with bobsled, it's I'm this is a really specific number, but 218 is that's where, because you got to add measure everything anyway. But yeah, it's two. I think it was 230. So kind of where I felt my best.
So what was the 40 like? What was your 100 keys press? What was your vertical? We love to ask those questions on this platform, man.
We have to.
I don't even remember, to be honest with you, and I don't even remember really testing that much while we were playing. We would do a little stuff in the spring, but we would never
really.
It was more. Our testing was not even testing. It was more focused on position drills, right? Our conditioning was based off of game conditioning. So you wouldn't just. Now we did do this a lot, but we'd run up, do. God, so many 100-meter sprints just for conditioning. But what we transitioned to was specific. They would read you 10 plays off a play chart that you might do at the middle linebacker position. So maybe a 20-yard back pedal, a 40-yard sprint, a bear crawl, right? Something that was applicable to what you might see in a game. And you would do that as a conditioning. And that, I remember starting up for the first time, and that got me in more shape than anything that we ever did.
I hear that.
Okay, let me. Sorry, Hutch. Let me ask you a quick question. So obviously your dad's, he's coached for many years, and you're just saying that the drills that you done, when you was playing, go back probably 5-10 years. Were they is that the same sort of things that they would have been doing then when you started playing, or is it completely different? I'm trying to see how it changed from era to era, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think if you asked, if you found a strength and conditioning coach that had been around in college football for 25 plus years, they would have a better answer than me. But from what I remember seeing when I was a kid and hearing some of my dad's old players talk about, was the methods that they did back in the early 2000s, kind of into the early teens, was a lot different than what we kind of moved into in 2016, 2017. Mm-hmm. Back then, it was that old school, mat drills. We're going to go run stadiums at 3 a.m. We're just going to put you through the shit and just see, who's going to last. And we did do that. But what it turned into was more position specific things that would translate more to the field on Saturday. And the
Okay.
best representation was we would break off into position groups, and the quarterbacks would do something, the kickers, whatever. But the receivers had it the worst because they would do, you do a 10-play sheet, and the head strength coach would blow the whistle. Every position they start, do their plays, and the receivers would be running 60-yard verticals, but for them, and then they got to jog back and then run a 30-yard slant. Right, for that was very specific to them, to their position, and it translated well on Saturday. Right, instead of just lining up and running, 10 100s, that you could just kind of not jog through, but your body gets really adapted to the work you're doing.
Right.
But these drills we started doing, you could never get adapted to it. Just like on a game on Saturday, you get 4 plays in, and you're like, oh my god, dude, like I can't breathe, right? Like,
Yeah.
Answer your question.
No, that answered it because it must obviously over the times when we played it was nothing related to the field. It was all about making you a better player, as in mentally. Now it seems to be around make you a better player on the field. You like you just said there, like running 60-yard go routes, 40-yard start bands. It wasn't about that when we was going out. We was literally let's just grind these boys into the ground and beat them and see who's about this and see who's not about it and who's going to quit.
Exactly.
But appreciate that.
Yeah, and no, and I don't want to miss the fact that there was still some of that. Like there was a weeding out process that you get new guys that come in every turn of the semester. We wouldn't even learn their names. We didn't want to. They were just replacements. You've seen those like the war movies when the new guys show up and they're like, yeah, this guy, he ain't worth anything. Well, that's really what we would do, and we would know. We knew a couple weeks later those guys were out of here. They weren't going to stay. They couldn't last, right? And our strength coaches would go through that same mental toughness training, that weed out process, which I think every sports team should go through to kind of test the character of who you got.
Yeah.
And kind of get rid of the bad actors, so to say, or the people, not even the bad actors. What I found was the people that were unwilling to conform to the identity of the team. That's the biggest thing. You could be an individual in track and field. Go do that, right? You want to go be a world champion hurdles? Go do that because it's just you. Maybe not on a relay team, but when it comes to a team sport, football, hockey, soccer, lacrosse, doesn't matter. Rugby,
it's about the team.
You have to conform to the team, or you're not going to be successful.
Okay, so after your senior year, right? You I think you told me before you didn't go in the draft, right? You were happy with your football career, your collegiate football career, and then you decided to transition. But before we did do the transition to the bobsleighing, your bobsleighing career, I want to know: did you try for the CFL? Did you try for the XFL? Did you try to play in NFL Europe or play in Europe at all?
Yeah, no, I think my thought process was when I got done playing, I kind of had a conversation with myself that my whole life up to that point had been football, particularly college football. And so I just felt this kind of level of like freedom when I was done playing that like it's over. Now I can really take what I learned all these years of playing the sport, and I can go in this world and figure it out. And that's kind of what I did. I kind of left with I don't want to say like bad, but a happy chip on my shoulder of like, I'm content with my career. Now I'm going to go prove myself in other ways. But what happened was, is I go to China, I teach, and then I just get thrown right back into football again. And I remember I have a lot of friends in the Chinese football league now, and then some friends in the Japanese, the X League in Europe. And there was always that kind of nagging thought of like, yeah, maybe I should just go play football again because you miss it,
Oh
right?
yeah,
I miss it now,
I get
even
it.
though I'm competing still. Um, so yeah, to answer your question, I didn't. But it's funny how football is part of my identity. It will always be that, whether I'm playing or coaching or administering. I think it'll always be there.
Can I ask something quickly before you get on that? So does no, we haven't gone today yet. So I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait. So go ahead, guys. My bad. I got you.
So
I'm saving this
I'm
one.
ready, I'm ready to change lanes, man. I want to change gears and get into.
Yeah, yeah, but I'm gonna let you change it, and then I'm gonna ask that
All
question.
right, so I'm gonna change gears to the bobsleighing now. And
Yeah, yeah.
in 2020, you joined the USA Bobsledding team. And that was during the heights of COVID. Um, I mean, I gotta ask these questions. How did this come about? I mean, how did this opportunity find you, or how did you find this opportunity?
Great question. Great question. So let me preface this by telling y'all where I'm from. Right, I'm from about as far south in the United States as you can get. Besides, Florida, Texas. Mississippi, there ain't nothing there, and
Oh,
it's
I know.
there ain't nothing. And in the summer it's 115 degrees. There ain't no snow. There ain't no ice. Right. So let me just because this question comes up all the time. How did you even get into
Right.
this? Right. So I come home from China. I come home right before COVID starts. COVID starts. I start working, kind of in a job in Nashville, and then I get someone reaches out to me who was a coach for the men's speed skating team. Right, his name's Andrew, and he said, "I don't know where you're at with your," and he was connected to me tangentially through Ole Miss. Right, so it was an Ole Miss connection essentially.
Right.
And he said, I don't know where you're at athletically, but Team USA Winter Sports recruit from old athletic pools, track and field, football is a big one. And he's like, would you be interested in trying for, doing bobsled? And all I thought about was Herschel Walker. I'm like, yeah, man, this. I know how to work hard and I know how to do, I just came home from China. I just tested myself as a young man. I was like, I know how to do hard shit and I know how to push through it. And so I was like, let's do it. At the time, there was a TV show by NBC called The Next Olympic Hopeful. He got me on the tryout for that show. I got accepted to the show. It was going to film and kind of you show up, you do a bunch of testing. It's going to be on NBC. But COVID canceled the
Mm.
show. And I remember them sending me a piece of mail in a water bottle that said Team USA. And it was like, thanks for trying, show's canceled, thank you for being a part of our community. And I was like, hell no, man. Like, I still want to get in the sled. Like, I want a bobsled still. So I reached out to the coach on the bobsled team and he was like, yeah, I remember your application. He's like, here's what I want you to do. I want you to do a digital combine. So I did a combine that my roommates filmed me doing, submitted it to him, was on a couple interviews, and he said, if we like you, we'll call you back. You'll know in a few weeks. I was like, okay. A few weeks go by, and I was like, man, I guess they didn't like me because I hadn't heard nothing. And I'm about to go to work one morning, and I get a call from him, and he goes, hey, man, have you not been getting my emails? And I was like, no, sir. And he goes, I've been emailing you for 2 weeks, and you haven't responded to a single one. The admin girl got my email address wrong.
Ooh.
And so once we figured all that out, he goes, man, I need you to drive to upstate New York this weekend to start your rookie camp as bobsled athlete. To kind of do preliminary to see if you could even push the sled and like all that stuff. I was like, man, I'll drive up there tomorrow. And so I remember that weekend I loaded up my Jeep and I drove 17 and a half hours to
Wow.
and that's kind of how the journey started, off and on. And I started competing. I did my first race 2 years ago, so technically that's when I got recruited in 2020, but I really started my first race in 2022. If that
And
makes
was
sense.
that for Team USA?
Yes. Yep.
That's cool.
we have different circuits. So the highest level is World Cup, and then we have the Europa Cup, the North American Cup, and my first race was on that North American Cup, which is cool. It was the first time I walked in. I was like, man, I'm a guy from the SEC, I'm a blue collar guy, and I'm wearing Team USA, and I'm competing internationally for my country. And I don't think you can play in front of 80,000 fans. But to wear your country's flag, I think is a little different. Even though it's not the Olympics, it's still it's cool.
It's up there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Since I'm glad you lot transitioned onto that. So Elliot, has that filled the void of football? Are you happy now that? Can you say, yeah, I'm quite happy to leave the football alone, or is it still there a little bit?
Oh man, it's there. It's there. It's there, and it's funny because a lot of my teammates now, and like I said, my girlfriend now, she's on the women's team, so we're teammates, which is funny. And she's always saying, she's like, you just like, and I'm like, man, I just miss hitting somebody, man. Like I miss playing and competing in front of 100,000 fans, and I miss that feeling, that smell. That feel like there's just something to it you can't emulate. And if you've never played football, you're not going to get it. She doesn't understand it. But I think it will always be a part of me, no matter what I'm doing. Bobsled is a very unique sport and a blessing to do. But I'm still, my heart is still in football for sure, 100%.
I think your bobsleighing. Is it you single for? How many is it? Hold on. I know there's single, and there's single, and there's four, and there's two. Correct?
Yeah. So the women team have 1 and 2. The men's team have 2 and 4.
Okay.
So really, if I have a specialty on the bobsled team, I'm a side pusher on the 4-man sled. So really, my job is to hit that sled and push that thing for 25, 30 meters as hard as I can, get in and go for a ride and pray we don't end up on our head. That's my job.
So how fast is the actual sled traveling at once all of you are in it?
Yeah, let me do this conversion real quick. Hold on. I'm sorry. Let's see. Hold on. Let me do this. All right, so a 4-man sled can get up to 144 kilometers an hour.
So that's like 110 miles an hour, man. 110, 115 miles an hour.
Well, I'm sorry, this might be wrong. It gets up to like 90 miles an hour.
90 miles an hour, right? Okay.
90, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you pull. They did the U.S. Olympic Committee did a study on our team of athletes. Kind of the forces that we go through competing and riding in a sled, and they did a study on G forces, and that we pull the same amount of G force as like a Royal Air Force fighter pilot. It was so.
Oh, wow.
Rewind a bit. Well, Elliot, rewind a bit. Just put that into perspective a bit more, so we understand what about this G-force is like in comparison to.
Is that's the corners, correct?
Yeah, when you're going around the turn.
Correct.
And we don't see anything in the back as push athletes. The pilot steers the sled, but like our job, we just sit in the back and we keep our head down and try to stay as
go for the ride,
aerodynamic as possible. Yeah, and you feel it. I mean, you better empty your stomach before you go down that hill, or it's going to empty in the sled. You ain't got no choice.
So Elliot, I've noticed both sports involve being very explosive. Okay, and did your football training cross over into bobsleigh training, or was there different exercises that you had to do to improve your bobsleighing skills?
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
Yeah, I would say it translated. I won't say 100%, but probably 85 to 90. The one thing that football players, what I've seen, is missing in the sport is just that straight up speed that the track athletes have. Because once you start pushing the sled, it starts going downhill. And so our track athletes can open their gait up better than the football athletes can, right? The
Right.
football athletes can hit the sled and punch it out of the hole. But when it comes to that overspeed, that real just kind of digging it out, the track athletes are better at that. So it's cool because we do similar things with power development, but for a lot like me and the football guys, we really got to focus more on kind of speed development, whereas the track athletes focus a little bit more on strength, if that makes sense.
Got it. Right.
So like a sprinter, obviously explode out the blocks, but then that once they up and going, they know how to maintain
Yeah.
that speed. Where a football player, once they come out of the blocks, they're running and they don't know how to maintain that, and they lose that speed and that power. Where the sprinters know how to maintain that power over a certain amount of distance. Is that
Right.
what
And then and you start getting into body weight is a big thing. So you have to, a crew has to, it can't exceed a certain body weight. And what usually happens is there's a lot of tactics to it. So the guy on the very back of the 4-man sled is usually the lightest and the fastest. And the two side guys are bigger built, usually football players that can punch the sled out of the hole. They get in quicker. And then by the time they're already in the sled, the guy in the back, the 4-man, the brakeman, he's still going full speed, right? So usually that's the kind of dynamic you see: two bigger, powerful guys on the side and a really fast guy on the back.
So what is the total weight of the four guys?
I think it's
Roughly.
Yeah. So I think a good rule of thumb is with your gear on, you want to be around, if you can average out to 220 pounds each, including the pilot, you're sitting, that's a pretty good average. Now you can fluctuate within that average. So say the guy on the back, the speed guy, is only 200 pounds. Well, then maybe the the guy that's sitting behind the pilot, can be 240. Right. So you can really start to play with the averages, but around 220 each is pretty standard.
And what are on your feet? They like sprinting spikes, or they're completely different to sprinter spikes.
Yeah, they kind of look like sprinter spikes. They're built like them with a really rigid toe box. But when you turn them around, there's about 100 metal spikes that, I mean, they're sharp. Like if you just take it and touch yourself with it, I mean, you'll start bleeding. So in a 4-man sled, you're getting spiked all the time because you're sitting, you know, you're sitting pretty close to each other, right? And
Right.
so, and those spikes are expensive. I mean, they're like $300 a pair because they're not mainstream. Like you can't just go buy them in a store.
Right.
Which kind
Okay.
of comes up to my next kind of question about that. So, okay, so the cost of the equipment for an American football player, talking about the helmet, shoulder pads, knee pads, pair of shoes, etc. In the UK, say about 350 to 400 pounds. Once you got all that stuff, you're good to go. What does that look like, man, for the attire for a bobslayer? I'm talking about the suit, the helmet, the shoes, or the spikes, and including the sled. So what's the cost of the attire, and then what's the cost of the sled?
Yeah, the bobsled's got to be the most expensive Olympic sport. It's maybe like what sailing might be more expensive, but bobsled is expensive. One 4-man sled could be $120,000 plus because it's very technical how they build it. There's a lot of carbon fiber. It's very machine to be as aerodynamic. And that's why the sport, I think, is struggling, is because the cost and the sustainability. The kit itself, the helmet, $200-$300. The uniform, like we wear a Kevlar vest under our uniform, so if we crash, we're not getting burns on our skin. That's another $200. The spikes, $300. The training suit itself, maybe a couple $100 more. And then you wear gloves on top of that. So it's more expensive than football for sure.
120 bags for a sled.
For
You know what?
performance, yeah,
And he just said Kevlar, bro. I wouldn't even thought they had Kevlar on, bro. Kevlar is expensive as hell.
yeah.
That's a
Yeah,
whole different ball game.
and those burn vests are hard to find, so we recycle them. If someone's retiring and selling them, and I think I've got 3 now, and I hoard them
Yeah.
because you don't know when you might need another one, right? I've been in a crash. I was in a pretty bad crash a couple of years ago, and that Kevlar vest saved me from getting a skin graft on my shoulder because of the going 90 miles an hour and you're on the ice, right? Like it just melts your skin off. Like there's no,
What?
you can't protect yourself unless you have that Kevlar.
Got it. So what is it, what does it look like? What parts of your body does it protect? How far down your body does it go?
Like maybe like down to your belly button, and it goes. Mine is a full sleeve, so
Yeah.
like this, and it protects your whole upper body. Other than that, that's it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So guys, one of my
Would have never known.
one of my buddies I think he had part of his tattoo burned off on his leg because he was in a really bad crash, and it's just it's just kind of the way of the sport.
So you're saying that's just caused from sliding on the ice?
Yeah, if you crash, yeah. Because if the sled tips over and because you're in the sled and your head is on the ice and your shoulder and you're just getting drug at 80 miles an hour and you just wear it. Yeah, I don't know.
But the message, you just wear it. Nah, bro. Yeah, I like pain, but not like that.
I hear that.
Yeah.
Whew. Oh, good Lord. You're just losing your skin. Nah. Respect, though. Respect to that because, that's why I asked that question. Are you quite happy in that sport? Is it something that taken over, playing football, but it's slightly different in a lot of ways. Yeah, the explosiveness and the training regime and being aggressive with the sled, I understand that part, but it's slightly different. You need a different mental game for that, for what you're doing there, because, like you just said, if that thing turns upside down, it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
You can turn it upside down in one play. You don't even turn it upside down in a play. You get a little concussion. Nah, I'm all right. And you're trying to go back out there.
Yeah. It's a different animal. It demands a whole other level of respect. Where there's guys, and we also compete. We do the sport when it's freezing, when it's 0 below Celsius, right? Easy, and you got to line up, and you're wearing basically nothing, and you got to sprint when it's negative whatever. And then you got to get in a sled, which is you're getting thrown around in the sled too without even crashing. So it's very physical, and every time you slide, anybody who says they're not afraid or they're not a little nervous is a liar, right? Because it is. There is a level of, and it's a mental game. It's like you're standing on the block, and it's like, all right, man, I'm gonna confront fear every day. Is it a sustainable sport? No. Like I'm not going to be doing the sport the rest of my life. A few more years and that's it. And I can tell my kids one day, God willing, I have kids. Yeah, your dad did that, right? And then I'm gonna, be on to the next thing.
I hear that, man.
What is the retirement age in bobsleighing, if you don't mind me asking?
Great question, because we got guys that are damn near 40 still doing it.
I hear that.
Wow.
I have no idea. I think it's whenever you've had enough, or your body gives out.
Or if you can't hit the grade anymore.
Right, or if you can't hit that standard, and a lot of it's like brain health, right? Concussions are really prevalent. I had a concussion in college. The vibrations of the sled. There's a lot of mini concussions that you get just doing the sport. So overall my brain health, I don't want to jeopardize,
Yeah.
you know.
Get that.
So
So Elliot, man, I mean, yeah, you mentioned earlier that you graduated in school. You graduated in marketing and comms, right? Um,
mhm.
but then you found sports diplomacy. Okay, um,
Yes.
building connections between different countries through sports and sportsmanship through like exchange programs. Yeah, this sounds cool. Yeah, but if you wanted to sell this to someone, if I wanted to get involved with this, how would I go about doing that?
Yeah. Hold on one second. I'm responding to my colleague right now about something
Okay.
similar. Uh, yeah, I think that's a great question, and I get that question a lot. There is no direct path. I got introduced to this world on LinkedIn, and I came home from China, and I remember my dad. They flew my dad out to work. We did a project with the NFL in Shanghai, and they flew my dad out. I remember my dad telling me, he's like, "You got to find a way to make this your career, full time." And I got back home to the States, and I just started digging. Found my now mentor on LinkedIn and DM'd her and was like, "Hey, I'd love to talk. This is me. This is my story. I'm willing to do whatever it takes." And we've been, really close ever since. And she got me in my role now, working with the group that I work with. But then, like in the future, right? It's like, where do I see this going? Because there is no path. It's not like saying like I want to be a doctor, right? Like you go to school for 8 years and you go do it. Here, it's really in sports diplomacy in the field. It's really however you want to make it, right? And for
Yeah.
me, using football is a tool and something I'm passionate about and something I've already done on the ground, right? So I could see definitely after bobsled's over, building more in that capacity of expanding football internationally and using sport diplomacy in that way. And then on the other side, it's cool because I work in it professionally, but I also compete in it as a Team USA athlete, right? So when I go to these international competitions and I'm interacting with the other athletes and coaches and fans, it's a way sport is used to bring countries and people together. And bobsled's just a small example of that. But as you guys can see in England, right, that the NFL playing 3 games in London is huge, right? I think
Oh,
they're all in
without
London.
doubt.
Yeah, and
Without
so
doubt.
you're seeing it build momentum every year, and the NFL is the biggest brand for it. And getting involved with that, I think, is kind of my future direction.
Got it.
I, I'm gonna touch on the laws. I think I read you're sponsored by like a sports energy drink. How did Is that something you personally had to do, or is that something the Team USA did?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the way that the United States Olympic movements are set up, it's completely different than the UK, or actually, it's completely different than everywhere else in the world. We have the USOPC, which is Team USA, and then we have our NGBs, which are national governing bodies that are tangentially connected to Team USA. So for
Okay.
us, I'm part of USA Bobsled and Skeleton. There's USA Track and Field, USA Football, USA Basketball. And each NGB goes and gets their own partners and sponsors and all that. Within that framework, athletes can go get their own sponsors and partners. And so right now, the team that, the pilot and the group of 4 or 5 guys that I compete with for next season in Europe will be, we're getting our own sponsors for our own sleds along with the ones that, we already have with our, Team USA entity. But now we're out, hunting and finding people on our own. Um, and just like a slight like insider trading secret, we're in the works of getting a docu-series done, kind of like the Drive to Survive, like Formula One style, but with like Team USA bobsled
Yeah.
and following us around. And it's myself and a couple other football guys, a couple track guys, and we're all on one sled team together. And we're going to be competing in Europe all winter. So it's going to be
Nice.
it's going to be it's in the works. So hopefully we can get it done, and it'll be very entertaining. That's for sure.
I mean, the reason why I asked that question about the sponsorship is because Narco is a European brand energy drink, and I just want to know how how you came across that. How do you get involved in something that's way in Europe and you're in the US? That's the reason why I asked that question.
Yeah, great question. So the NOCO sponsor or partnership, I just call it a partnership because they didn't give me any monetary exchange. They just gave me a bunch of free energy drinks, which I love them. And I didn't even know they were a European company until I started digging a little bit more. But I had a friend or I met somebody at the old city I used to live in who was
Mhm.
working for NOCO and their partnerships, NOCO USA, and
Okay.
that was the connection. Yeah.
Okay.
And I told him, I was like, if you keep sending me energy drinks, I'll wear your sticker on my
Right.
helmet. And so that was kind of like the original, I guess you could say, agreement.
Okay. 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 Where we at? Where we at? Where we got, family?
Well, I don't know if you guys can be hearing it, but I'm getting a rumble tummy, man. I need to go and get something to eat.
This man loves to eat. Let me tell you, he needs his food, bro.
I ain't lying, man. There's something wrong with me. I can't wait to eat.
That's, that's why he's still holding his weight, man. That's why I got to respect him. He's still at his little 225. No, he's probably about 230 now. But he's at, out of all of us, he's still holding his
Hey,
weight.
hey, I got one question for you guys now. I got a question
Go
for
ahead.
y'all. Man, come on. I need to know what is with this beans and toast? What is
Beans
that?
on toast.
Bro,
Come on.
that's not something I entertain. I'm very
Okay.
honest with you. I don't eat bread for one, and
Okay.
beans, nah. Anytime I would eat beans is at a barbecue. That's the only time I'm eating like beans. I'm not eating beans on no toast. I can't speak for us, but that's just me. I'm not.
So
That's
yes,
funny. I asked because I was in Hong Kong a couple weeks ago and they had an English breakfast,
yeah.
right? The spinach, the tomatoes, the bacon, the beans. And I took a picture of it and I put it on my Instagram. And of course, like all my friends in the UK, especially the bobsledders on Great Britain's team, they're like, mate, it's just beans and toast. You got to put it on some white toast, man. I ain't doing all that.
Well, I ain't gonna lie. I mean, when I was a kid growing up, yeah, I used to have like beans on toast, and I hit it back, and it was cool. I had no problem with it. As a kid, when you grow up on some of this stuff, you just eat it, right? You eat it. But as time moves on, I'm if I had it, if someone gave it to me, if I'm like at a restaurant or whatever, or a hotel or something, and I have breakfast, I'll have scrambled eggs, I have mushrooms, I'll have some beans, I'll have some toast. Yeah, I would. But as and when you come over to the UK, you have to tick two boxes when it comes to the so-called UK cuisine. The first one is
All right.
fish and chips.
Fish and
You
chips.
gotta,
Oh
you
yeah,
gotta, you gotta, you gotta tick that box.
day
You
one
gotta
off
tick
the
that box
plane.
all day, and you won't have to search far. There's so many fish and chip shops everywhere. You could do that. The second one is is it Yorkshire pies? Is it Yorkshire pie? Yorkshire pies and peas and mash. Those, those to
Okay.
me are like the typical British like
Yeah,
meals that people eat here.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like it's really hearty food.
Heavy.
Like there ain't
It's
nothing light.
heavy. Yeah, it's heavy.
Yeah.
yeah. That's one of them ones where it put you to sleep. You need a little nap after you have it. It's one of them ones.
That's funny. That's
So
funny.
Elliot,
Yeah, no, actually I'll be not in the UK, but I'll be in. I plan on being in Dublin at the end of August for the Aer Lingus Classic, coming over and kind of showcasing the Florida State versus Georgia Tech as they continue to keep playing that game in Ireland. It's growing, as you guys know. American football is blowing up
it
in Europe
is.
and
It
especially
is.
England and Ireland.
It is.
Yeah,
I tell you,
definitely.
man. It's been here in Europe, should I say? It's been in Europe, and it's been at a really good level in Europe for years. I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm talking about in 2000, 20 to 23 years ago when I was playing semi-pro in Hamburg. I mean, I was playing for one of the bigger teams, but we was having about 40,000 in the crowds there, and
Right.
you had like import players that were playing in the league, still doing the same thing today, and they had like Monday Night Football in Germany. They had like 35 to 40 minute shows every Monday of the highlights of the games. Okay, and that's in the European countries. So it's far bigger in places like France, Germany, Spain, Italy, Austria, Sweden. It's big there, but in the UK, yeah, you got to watch some of our podcasts
It's just a challenge in the UK because there's just so much going on.
to understand where we're coming from. It's really, really disappointing in the UK. Really.
But the talent is here. That's what you need to understand. The talent is here for
Just the
the
infrastructure.
football. That's why so many English players are going into Europe.
The infrastructure of football
Right.
in the UK never took off, and there's multiple reasons as to why. I ain't going through them now because I got a weight problem. I can't wait to eat. But watch some of our podcasts, and you'll be able to see exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
But Elliot, man, listen, I'm going to round this up. It was great to reach out to you. Let's stay in
Appreciate
contact.
that.
Let's keep it compulsory in our careers that we stay in contact. I'm sure you can help us. We can help you. Yada yada yada. Okay. So
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. Man,
Without a doubt, bro. Appreciate it, Alex.
so
I appreciate taking the time out to talk to us.
No, I mean, absolutely. And you know what? I kind of got a philosophy of, you do cool shit, you're going to meet other people doing cool shit.
I hope so.
And it's a pleasure to meet you guys. And hopefully we can meet, in real life one day. And yeah, and have a pint, man. Like I want to I'll leave you with this. I want to go to one good soccer match, and I want to go to a crazy one. Like I want to go to London and go to like a Millwall home
listen to
match.
this. He knows it's a Millwall. Okay.
Bro, that's about Millwall, you know.
If we could ever make it work, we'd have to take you to a London derby, man. Something like
Yeah.
Tottenham
Yeah.
against Arsenal, something like that
Oh,
in
yeah.
London. Or if you was going to go up north, something like
Man U, Man City, or Liverpool, Everton.
Yeah, those will
Yeah.
be right.
Yeah.
Those are right.
Those would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I want to. I'm trying to experience some crazy football. In all honesty, like I want to see it because I've never seen it.
The fan, right? Okay,
Okay.
So the fan base in British football, so let's just call it soccer, in the stands, it's different. It's different to American football fans. It's different, man. It's different. It's potentially
They can't sit together. Put it this way, they can't sit together.
Wait.
Where
There's
in
no way.
American football they can sit together. You ain't sit together in English soccer. There's no way in the world that's not happening.
And hey, listen, whatever match we go to, I'm buying a jersey, the home team jersey, and I'm talking so much shit. And I just want to be a part of that environment. I want to experience that culture aspect of it. I think it's unique. It's unique to the UK, and I respect it. And I think it's just
cool.
from a love of sport.
Elliot, man, it's been a blast, man. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
And
bro.
Ro, you know the drill, man. You know the drill.
Go ahead, man. You lead it
I
off.
sure will. Good rice, good meat, good God. Let's eat.
Let's eat. Have a good evening, man.